It's saying the server went down. Does anybody know that password? Because otherwise we can't do any work.
Try password.
Nope.
Try 000 000.
No.
Okay, now try 000 001.
Okay, I'm not doing every number. Why don't we just call the IT guy who set it up? What's the name of the guy in the glasses again?
Okay, moving backwards, our IT guys have been glasses, ear hair, fatty 3, shorts, fatty 2, lozenge, and fatso. I think lozenge is the one who installed it.
I got it. Try,
You know what? It made me laugh when I heard it, but Pam got really offended.
Ooh, big boobs.
Drama queen, nosy.
You're typing big boobs?
I'm trying everything.
Try big boobs with a Z.
That's the password. We're in.
All right.
Wow.
Yes.
The important thing is, this kept us secure, people.
All right, welcome to the Tech 1-2 podcast. My name is John Campus. I'm your host today. In the studio, very excited today, I have Sam Ehar from CyberQP. Thanks for being in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Man, love it. You didn't have to come too far, did you?
No, right down the street. Yeah, so it's easy to get here.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally down the street. Well, that doesn't happen too often where we have proximity to our podcast guests is that close. But
It worked out. It worked out well.
So how you loving Chicago?
I like it a lot. I've been here for just over 2 months. So I got the tail end of summer.
Yeah.
And I'm making my way through the food list because everyone's got recommendations on restaurants. So I love that about here.
What's your favorite so far?
The best one that I've had so far, I'll start with the pizza because that's a big one. I did Giordano's and Illuminati's. And I think I got to go with Giordano's.
Oh.
I like that.
It's the right answer.
I'm in agreement there. You selected the right one, so we can continue.
Yeah.
You made it. So tell me, what do you do at CyberQP exactly?
I'm on the sales team. I'm
Okay.
account executive, so talk with a lot of MSPs that are looking, kind of evaluating their tech stack, and specifically helping with privileged access management and security around their help desks.
Okay. And CyberQP, can we get just a brief background on CyberQP?
Yeah, security-focused company that serves the MSP channel, and we started with really password resets is how the company started. Our two founders, one ran an MSP, the other owned a software company, and I think the issue that came up was had a lot of password reset tickets and unlock tickets, and so we need a tool for this, and kind of built from there to automate some of the functions that MSPs have to deal with, and then have really taken a security focused approach as the company's grown. So yeah, we try to keep privileged accounts protected and secure and automate help desks for MSPs.
Awesome. Yeah, those tedious user password reset tickets.
Yeah, that everybody forgets when they get back from vacation or
Exactly.
Where am I? What is this? What's going on here?
I mean, that's a topic of conversation every day. I mean, with us, with our clients in the industry, I'm sure you mentioned that you're working with all these MSPs. Cybersecurity is still top of mind, correct?
Yeah, and it's only growing. It's getting more and more important.
Yeah, why do you think it's growing?
I think that tools to attack companies are getting more sophisticated, and as all kinds of companies are adopting technology into their business models, every industry has to make sure that they're secure. I don't think that was always the case. It was maybe just tech companies, but technology is spreading throughout, and so the vulnerabilities are also spreading throughout.
Yeah, the attack surface, the attack vectors continue to increase. These tools have gotten sophisticated, and they've just become so available. I mean, we hear ransomware as a service, subscription-based model in order for an attacker or bad actor to just pay a subscription like we pay for subscriptions of your product or any other SaaS product. Yeah. You can now purchase, ransomware as a service. It's just so available that...
That's wild.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's so available out there right now that that bad actors just have all the tools at their fingertips, and oftentimes doesn't require an extreme level of sophistication because If you have the funds, the means to procure that, then you can subscribe to it, get full tech support, full documentation, knowledge base, and
Yeah, it's making it easier.
Yeah,
easier
exactly.
And easier to attack.
so we know that we have these threats. They're just going to continue to increase. We talk a little bit about, you mentioned privileged access management.
Yeah.
Why do you believe that's important?
Well, MSPs, they have privileged accounts that they need for, to service all of their customers, and those tend to be a big attack area for bad actors. And there's, on the enterprise side, there's tools available, but for the smaller and medium channels, it has not been available. So they're kind of like left out to dry. So that was a gap that the founders of the company saw and were able to add value quickly, because you can't grow into a larger company, unless you have to have a kind of like a journey as the company grows. But if you don't have the tools to protect yourself, you're not going to last very long. So
The old world order needs dismantling, and we have the tools to dismantle it.
So oftentimes what we see in environments that we're onboarding that are coming over to EMPIST is that there's accounts that exist within environments that people just don't know about. Like there's all these accounts, privileged or not, isn't good process in place to audit the accounts and to make sure that these accounts still exist. There's still named users that are still part of this organization. How important is it to just, in your opinion, to just keeping things audited and ensuring that all accounts that exist on a domain are active ones and needed?
I think it's as important as, if you have, another way to say that, if you have privileged accounts that are floating around that you don't know about, no matter how much security protocols or practices you have on the ones that you do know about, you're still vulnerable. And so you should regularly audit, what accounts are across your network, especially if you're an MSP that's growing and you're bringing on new customers. If you don't have a way to discover these accounts, then again, you just have, vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And it's worse when you think that you've done everything that you need to do, and it's something that you don't even know about, and you're kind of caught off guard with that. So yeah, extremely important to do that.
Yeah. So, you can't protect something that you don't know exists. So, yes, the auditing, but not just the auditing. So, yes, you have a level set, you've audited everything. It's the proactive monitoring of that, too, when permissions are being elevated. And now you have Jane Doe. We keep on picking on Jane during these podcasts. However, there's a Jane Doe out there. But, Jane Doe is out there, and now her permissions were elevated to a domain admin. You need to be able to identify those types of things, because now Jane Doe is operating on her machine and now has a privilege within the domain that would grant her access to make, domain-wide changes as an admin. And if that's not being detected, that would be a major issue for organizations, because if Jane's account gets compromised and, either social engineered, phishing email, whatever that may be, that person is now impersonating Jane as a domain admin. That would wreak absolute havoc to an organization.
Yeah, and that's also assuming that they do something right away. Like a lot of bad actors could get access and just hang out for a while.
Yeah.
Under the radar. And when someone has time, that's the worst possible scenario.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to be able to zero in on it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Well, the stat that I read, it's 200 the dwell time that you're referencing right now is the amount of time an attacker can have access to a network before they actually launch the attack, because they'll build persistence. It's 206 days. Currently, it's 206 days. Yeah. So they compromise the account, they're impersonating this person, and now they're on the network without anybody's knowledge for 206 days. So that opens up a whole different discussion as far as, proactive monitoring and, preventative operations in order to identify those types of things with, endpoint detection and response, or EDR or MDR services. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because things can happen. Jane may have clicked on a link that she shouldn't have clicked on, but instead of just having regular user access or domain user access, somebody had elevated her permissions because maybe a piece of software wasn't working correctly. An easy way for IT was just like, all right, let's just give her domain admin or administrative access, and then they forget about it. They're like, all right, let's get her this type of access. It's so important to be able to identify those things and monitor them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that happens often. That the account gets forgot about. There's a lot of things that whether an internal IT team or a dedicated MSP has to focus on. So that's where like bringing in some technology that can assist with
Yep.
closing the loop on those types of things allows you to just focus on projects and not kind of have like thinking about, oh, did I close this account? Did I de-privilege that that account? So you have to use technology to your advantage, as like the responsibilities grow.
Yeah. So let's talk about password hygiene a bit, and we can look at privileged accounts. We can also look at end user accounts. But from a privileged account perspective, oftentimes, whether it's MSP or IT, IT managers within environments managing things entirely internally, or it could be co-managed. It doesn't make a difference. They'll set up accounts because applications need certain permissions. They have to create an account. They need certain permissions in order to operate. They'll set passwords for those, and very rarely will they ever revisit those accounts and change those passwords. So the password that they set back in 2005 is still the same password that the account has today.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your experiences with just like the rotation. What's rotation of passwords and privileged accounts, and then we can even expand it into end users.
Yeah, so my experience with talking with MSPs who are looking to solve some of the challenges around that, it's really kind of like two-pronged. So the first one is that, just like you said, the passwords don't get rotated often enough. And a lot of people know that. They're like, we're not rotating them as much as we feel we should. The other side is they do rotate them, but it's time consuming. The whole team, is kind of taking time off of projects that they're working on to manually change all of these passwords. And the longer that you have, you want to have strong passwords first off, and multi-factor as much as you can anywhere possible. But if you're able to also cycle them, then the example you were talking about where someone gets access to an account, if that password gets changed every 24 hours, then that access is limited, so that 206 days comes down to at max 24, but then you even get to like the just-in-time where you can, limit that even further. But that's kind of the two like issues that come up, is either like not rotating enough or time spent on manually rotating them.
There's not enough time in the day to...
I agree. I mean, it's time consuming. It's time consuming to change those passwords if you're doing everything manually. So that's why we want to introduce automation. And I know that some of the, part of your platform as well, you can automate a lot of those things. It isn't that somebody's going in and, right-clicking an account, change password. But, I mean, do you recommend daily? Do you recommend for some privileged accounts?
Yeah, well, we see most of our partners when it comes to their privileged accounts, and just a little context on like how the rotation tool works. We handle all local, global domain admins as well as service accounts. So what I've seen is a lot of MSPs will do daily rotations for those local, global, and domain. Service accounts is maybe weekly, bi-weekly. It's not as often. Those are ones that almost never get rotated.
Yeah.
Because when you rotate a service account password, it's going to break things.
Change the services.
Yeah. So we've got like some contingencies in there to make sure that it doesn't break the service, reboot all the tasks, or reboot the service, update scheduled tasks, things like that. But what I've seen is daily rotation for the local, global, and domain, and then more weekly or bi-weekly for service accounts.
What's your recommended complexity of passwords?
24 to 36 characters with as many, symbols, capitals, numbers that you can, that you can get.
Yeah.
Ours goes, I think it goes up to 99.
Still not enough.
Which is kind of crazy, but it protects against brute force. But if it can handle it, the longest password that you can have is going to be the best. It's going to take more time to crack.
Yeah, we like passphrases as well.
Yeah.
Incorporating the passphrase. passphrases into passwords, I think is very important.
Yeah, because if you're not able to just easily copy and paste the password, that's where the passphrases are extremely useful, because it's very tedious for someone to have to
Yeah.
type in, a long, super complex password. So that's
Yeah.
where those come in as well. But they have the length
Yeah.
to still allow for the protection of having, a lengthy enough password.
Password is password.
Password's password. That's not very secure.
So let's talk a little bit about it's fairly newer. I mean, it's existed, but the concept of just-in-time accounts. And just-in-time accounts, I think, is gaining a lot more popularity, not just in the MSP space, but even internal. Internal, whether you're the enterprise, you're an SME, managing internal IT. The concept of just-in-time accounts is something that I'm very interested in, and I know many organizations are. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So just in time, right, is like on-the-fly accounts that are created, but it comes from the idea of zero trust. Is that you should have, don't trust anybody outside, but also inside of the organization. And it's not that, you're assuming people are malevolent, but having this kind of like zero trust philosophy with how you approach things reduces possible gaps that come in. So, for instance, with the just-in-time accounts, typically what we see is MSPs will have like shared admin accounts, right? And the passwords can be rotating. That's, one of the things that we help with, which is a good step. But if you could have a password that's rotating, but then on top of that, an account that is only enabled for the time that it's being used and then deleted, you have what it's called zero standing privilege. So there isn't any accounts floating around that can be attacked. So it's kind of like you're closing that door as soon as it's not needed anymore, as well as having them rotate. So it comes from that philosophy though of just zero trust.
Don't trust anyone.
And it also helps with zeroing in, because again, right, multi-layered, there's no silver bullet. In the case that something does happen, your ability to zero in on when exactly that took place is much easier with something like a just-in-time account, because that was only active for that period of time. You kind of zero in on that, whereas if you have shared accounts, like you may have to go through, a lot of information to find out like when exactly did this breach take place. So it helps also with the kind of response to something going on as well.
Yeah, being able to audit who used that account at that time, who requested it, because if it doesn't have the appropriate permissions, it actually requires someone to request that to be elevated, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's about reducing the attack surface. So if you have accounts on the domain that aren't being used or are being used sporadically, they may not be used every day, you don't want those sitting around. Just like you don't want applications loaded on a machine that may be vulnerable, you want to remove those applications if you're not using them. You only want what's needed. So yeah, the concept of zero trust and how that's evolving. We know in the industry, zero trust is being used pretty much across every different partner. And I think it's confusing the industry, confusing the consumers a bit, because it's like zero trust, zero trust, zero trust. But it is truly about taking an approach of just, reducing that attack surface, only allowing things that are needed, right? Providing the privileged access only when it's needed.
Yeah.
And that significantly reduces the exposure that organizations have.
Yeah, I mean, if there isn't something to breach, then it makes it a lot harder to get access to information.
It's empty.
I know it is.
So yeah, I really appreciate having you in the studio today. Any closing thoughts you have for the audience?
Make sure that you're changing your passwords and use strong passwords. When you're talking about like, that end user accountability, I hear so many people say that they're changing password 123 to password 1234 to 345. Yeah, take accountability for the stuff that you're using. We're working hard on our end, but it's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the landscape is changing. Things are evolving. I mean, the topics of privileged access management, just-in-time accounts, I think was key. Those are very valuable to organizations, big or small. Those things should be applied to mitigate their risks. So yeah, thanks again for being in the studio. We really appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. And to our audience, stay tuned for our next podcast.